Welcome, everyone. We're really happy that you're joining us for this info session on the new pilot scheme called i-portunus houses. We've gathered here today with a full consortium team consisting of the European Cultural Foundation, Kultura Nova Foundation, and MitOst. Together, we will give you an introduction into the project, the related research on the future of cultural mobility, and of course, all practicalities you need to know before you consider your application. After our framing, there will also be time to answer questions. For this, you can already write all your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and you can do it already during the introduction. So we will start to try and answer all of them before the end. Within this session, we won't use the raised hand option. It's just because we only have 1 hour and we want to answer as many questions as possible. So take that into account, please. And in case we do not have, we have the idea that we know everything about this project, but it might still have that you have such particular questions that we don't have a conclusive answer to it at the moment. We're reporting everything at the end and saving everything. So we will make sure also to get back to you with a specific and conclusive answer on your question if we don't have it in this session. Before I want to introduce the first speaker, I'd like to inform you that we're recording this session as well. This is just for others to watch it on a later stage and to make sure that they get familiar with the project as well. So assuming that after this session, you know everything about i-portunus houses, we would really love it if you would spread the word as well and act as a multiplier for this project for us, so we can reach out to as many people as possible and give them the opportunity to apply for this scheme. Enough about this, enough of the introduction, let's start. So for this, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Philip Dietermeijer from the European Cultural Foundation.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Jenneken. My name is Philip Dietermeijer. I am part of the team of the European Cultural Foundation working behind this project. I'm usually head of programs in the European Cultural Foundation, and it's my pleasure to join you. Normally, the European Cultural Foundation is based in Amsterdam, and we all work from Amsterdam, but in these times, we work from all over Europe, so I'm joining you from Vienna today, and welcome everyone to wherever you are joining us from. Yeah, so to keep it relatively short and provide a lot of room for your questions, we will first, as consortium of European Cultural Foundation, Kultura Nova Foundation, and MitOst, give you a bit of an introduction what i-portunus is all about and where we all come from, and then how it's concretely gonna work. So maybe first to, most importantly, to say that i-portunus is actually a program that was initiated by the European Commission already a longer time ago for the very important aspect of supporting the mobility of artists and cultural professionals across European borders in all the 41 European Creative Europe countries. The Creative Europe program, as most of you will know, is one of the most important cultural programs the European Union offers. But the i-portunus schemes, pilot schemes actually, are implemented and co-funded by different consortia. So some may have come across previous i-portunus editions already. This one, our i-portunus houses scheme, which we launch today, is co-funded and implemented by a consortium of cultural organizations, Kultura Nova Foundation from Zagreb, MitOst from Berlin, and European Cultural Foundation in Amsterdam. And we are all actually in our many years of work in the field, also pioneers of cultural mobility, and therefore very much look forward to create and explore this new scheme for hosts and artists and cultural professionals in this new framework for the next year. i-portunus as such is there to support short-term mobilities for individuals that go abroad, but also in this pilot phase for organizations or individuals that host and attract international talent from the cultural and creative fields. The main objective is to connect international artists and cultural professionals across borders. Like it's important for the European Union why they work with arts and culture, to connect professionals and artists and people across borders. As an effect of that, to support international collaborations among all countries participating in the Creative Europe program, but also the UK. I already mentioned it's a pilot scheme the European Commission offers, and we implement together with them, with the idea that in the future, after this pilot phase, something like an Erasmus for the cultural sector. So similar to the Erasmus Students Exchange, something similar emerges and will be offered on a long-term basis or on a permanent basis in the Creative Europe countries. As i-portunus Consortium and people and organizations who have been working in this field for a very long time, we very much believe in the value of providing efficient and safe residencies and working environments for artists and cultural professionals. Safe in these times when we are all challenged very much by the pandemic is, of course, a very important aspect of receiving and sending artists out and cultural professionals out in terms of health. But safe can mean all sorts of, can have all sorts of different connotations also. So the focus of this program is really how can you be the best possible host for the artists and cultural professionals visiting you in the framework of a project. We are, as I said, in these times also, and as you see, very much working online and crossing borders digitally, but we all very, very strongly believe as cultural workers in the professional value of still making real life contacts across European borders and collaborating with among peers and with professionals face to face. We believe that digital offers a lot of opportunities, but for the real European experience and professional experience, you need to work with people face to face. And this is what we also have translated in an adapted version of this i-portunus Houses program that we'll offer you for the next year. We also, nevertheless, believe that cultural organizations and the creative professionals working in and around them very urgently in these times need to innovate and prepare for hosting their peers and co-producing artworks, cultural works, cultural projects also in the digital space. Because as I mentioned, we believe very strongly in the meeting face to face, but we also strongly believe that the digital space and digital collaboration offers a lot of opportunities. That the future of the cultural sector will very much have to deal with. And in the i-portunus framework, we try to offer a combination of both, which also will offer opportunities for really learning and becoming professional in offering things in digital space. So what do we concretely offer? I already mentioned the focus of this particular i-portunus scheme compared to the previous ones offered for individual artists only by the Goethe Institute. This one really has a focus on the hosts, on the host organizations or on the individual hosts to provide efficient, safe residencies, working environments for the creative individuals that visit them. So it's a specific mobility scheme we offer for local hosts, but always in a team with with 2 to up to 5 artists and cultural professionals who work with the hosts together in the framework of a particular project you apply for here to the i-portunus House scheme. Because of Corona times, but also because of the value we see in face-to-face and digital collaboration, it's the i-portunus House scheme offers physical mobility or a blended mobility, meaning a mix of physical mobility and virtual participation, as long as Corona still restricts our travel opportunities. We have a cap of, and you'll hear later about that, maximum 30% of our mobility budget provided by the European Union for this i-portunus House scheme will be available for digital collaborations in combination with physical mobilities, but only physical mobility, and you'll hear later about that, as soon as it's possible, again, is also possible in the framework, to apply within the framework of one of the 2 upcoming calls. We are actually aiming for spreading. It's a pilot scheme, so it's really not yet covering a lot of ground. This will be the future of this Erasmus for Culture. So we are aiming in this pilot to have at least 1 host from all the Creative Europe countries and the UK, so that we really have a very widespread kind of like network of these pilot i-portunus houses and hosts and projects of artists who work with them out there in all these countries. So that also, of course, requires that in these non-traveling times, especially for the countries also from outside the European Union, who are very important also for us to include in this scheme on equal footing, that artists, cultural professionals, and hosts who should work together in this i-portunus house scheme need to find each other first. And we offer a tailor-made, again, in the digital space, moments where artists and cultural professionals and hosts who are interested in applying will find and meet each other. And with a specific framework, we offer these matching sessions to identify, form, and prepare new teams so that you can apply successfully to this new scheme in the next weeks. We will hear about how that exactly works later on. Part of our i-portunus house pilot project, and that's so we always have to underline it's a pilot project, so we need to understand also what's going on in the field, and we are studying mobility and the reality of mobility and the future of how cultural mobility can look like across Europe, across the across the Creative Europe countries in the future. And for that, we also have, as part of the pilot project, a study on the future of cultural mobility planned. And my colleague, Deja Vidovic, who is the director of the Kultura Nova Foundation, one of the consortium members from Zagreb, who is doing this together with us, will introduce briefly what we have planned for the mobility study that will accompany the process while you do your mobilities until next year, the learning and the insights that will feed into this future Erasmus for Culture of the European Union. So next one is Dea, please.
Thanks, Philip. Hello from my side, from Zagreb. It's really my pleasure that I can also welcome all of you to our today info session. As Philip has stressed, important component of the i-portunus houses project is the research that is conducted on the current state of art and the future opportunities for the mobility of artists and the cultural professionals. Through the research, we will focus on the impact of mobility within the cultural sector, exploring previous experiences, but also the current needs of local hosts, artists, and the cultural professionals. We will also explore the role of funders, and parallel to this, we will evaluate the mobility projects implemented through the i-portunus houses grant scheme. The research is driven with the aim of proposing the set of recommendations for the future of transnational mobility grant scheme for the cultural sector that would improve mobility infrastructure. And this aim becomes even more urgent in the times of pandemic crisis, which also calls for reconsideration of the previous mobility models. So during the research, we will focus on several dimensions. One of them is local, since some of the intrinsic benefits of culture are participation and experiences of citizens. The local perspective has an important role in the mobility of artists and cultural professionals, their integration into the micro-level communities and interactions with the local environments. Another important dimension is the green dimensions, since the mobility affects the environment. We all know that. And one of the crucial issues in that context is how to develop sustainable and responsible mobility, and how artists, cultural professionals, and local hosts could improve environmental aspects of their everyday works, behaviors, but also mobility practices. The third dimension is a participatory, since the participation of everyone in cultural life is cultural right, and it represents one of the crucial aspects of culture. So we will examine the importance of participatory approach of local hosts, but also artists and the cultural professionals, and thus they encourage citizens' participation and their inclusion in different kinds of the decision-making process. Since innovative and smart mobility opportunities have encouraged a lot of networking, mobility practices should also be considered as a tool which empower artists, cultural professionals, and the local host. And through networking, they also get opportunity for their lifelong learning experiences that contribute to the building of their professional capacity. So beside these traditional impediments, the Corona time bring us to the new impediments within the mobility of artists and the cultural professionals. So we will look also at Corona and post-Corona era as a new dimension, focusing on the aspect of safe, digital, blended mobility, and so on. So all that mentioned dimension, we will explore among the artists and the cultural professionals as a creative traveler and the one who experiences mobility. And the research will also include the local host that provides mobility infrastructure and the funders that together with the local host create some mobility opportunities and could also improve the mobility condition. So three main group of activities of this research are bridging knowledge and practices that includes exploring state of arts of previous mobility and mobility grant schemes. Then the second group of activities is the coding i-portunus houses, through which we will evaluate impact of mobility implemented during the i-portunus houses projects. And based on all conducted data through a variety of quantitative and qualitative data, the research will end up with a scenario for the future of mobility and the future of mobility schemes that would include set of recommendations. At the end, I would like to invite you to participate in the questionnaire and series of online discussions that we are going to implement in the second part of this year. Of course, we will announce all that events and invite you to fulfill the survey or to participate in online discussions. And please be free to spread the words among your colleagues, because your willingness to devote your time to contribute with the information is really highly appreciated. And thanks to your involvement and sharing your experiences, your thoughts with us, it would be possible to make really relevant recommendations for the future of mobility, but also for the future of mobility schemes for artists, cultural professionals, and local hosts that would be more sustainable, more green, more inclusive, and hopefully more fair. So thank you. I would like to ask my colleague Jotam to take the screen and to continue with the presentation of the mobility grant scheme. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And also hello from Berlin. It feels a little bit like last weekend during the song festival with all these different cities presenting themselves. 12 points. Anyway, it's my job to kind of repeat a little bit of the things that were said in a different way. So I'm now the other guy with the glasses that will say this in his own words. Reminding you that i-portunus houses is in that sense different from other mobility programs, because we're really focusing our attention on the host, as in we are asking hosts to apply. So not individual artists that are interested in doing mobility. If they want to participate, they need to find a host where to go to. And these hosts are cultural organizations with a non-profit status in one of the 40 Creative Europe countries, plus the UK. There is also the possibility to apply as a host being an individual, but there we really look for established individuals that have something of a network and a structure around them to work and properly host the artists that they're inviting. And when I say artists, I also mean other creators and cultural professionals. Next slide. Yes, we move to the timeline. So we're getting to some of the practical stuff already. As you know, this first round of the pilot scheme just opened. Deadline will be on the 30th of June. You can work on your application on the online website, which we'll get back to later until that date. And then we need about a month to come to a selection. So the results will be announced on the 2nd of August. And then we're going to use the hot holiday month, August, to get everybody who has been selected ready to go with the contracts and all the technicalities that need to be organized there. The mobilities to plan with, you can plan it until the end of May next year. So those who apply in the first round, they have a slightly longer window to actually plan their mobilities, but they can't happen beyond end of May 2022. The second round will actually open already in about 3 months from now, on the 23rd of August, running until the 3rd of October. And the results of that second round will be announced on the 8th of November. And people that plan to apply for the second round should plan their mobilities happening from the 1st of December this year until the end of May next year. So what you can apply for, we have categorized the main objectives of the collaboration, as we call it, as in host and artists and cultural professionals coming together to work together, in 4 categories. The first being create, in the sense that you can use a mobility to get together and to co-create an artistic work, a production, a performance. The second category is related to making connections, anything related to networking, internationalization, broadening your horizon in the sense of connecting to different people and organizations. The third category is called learn, and this is very much about questions, challenges that you want to bring in to increase maybe some of your skills, get better at the work that you do, build your competences further. And the fourth category we call explore. So this is very much related to questions of research, diving deeper into a particular matter, and possibly developing new future collaborations and projects. Obviously, some of the mobilities will contain all of these categories, some will contain multiple, but we are asking you to understand which is your focus between these 4. So what does the mobility look like? We are very much looking forward to offering physical mobilities. It's happening again, finally. And the outlook throughout the region is very positive in that sense, although it will still be difficult to make mobilities available for everyone from each corner of the Creative Europe plus UK region. Therefore, you can also apply for a mix of physical mobility and virtual participation, so-called blended mobility. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, you can't apply for virtual mobility only. In total, we have a budget available of 500,000 or €500,000, and 30% of that is capped for the virtual participation. So no more than 30% of this amount will actually be spending on the blended mobility. And for those who need additional support, for people with different abilities, there is additional support available for that. You can mention that in the application form. Then in order for you as cultural professionals, as artists, and as hosts to actually find each other, some of you might have a very strong network, but we're particularly also interested in people that are a little bit maybe outside the known networks, and people that are interested in making some new connections. We're organizing 4 what we call Market Square events happening every Wednesday afternoon from now on until the deadline closes, where people can get together, talk about the program, talk about what's going on in the cultural sector in Europe, but most of all, share their ideas of what it is that they want to work on for the mobility that they have in mind, and see who wants to work with them on that particular idea. So these will be peer moderated meetings, and you're very welcome to apply to those. They're happening online, and on the next slide you can see how to register for that. That's through the LineApper app. You can also find this link on the website. Through this app, you can register yourself for one of the sessions happening on the 2nd, 9th, 16th, or 23rd of June, happening each of those days between 2 and 5 p.m. Central European summertime, sorry, or Berlin time for me. You can register there. You can connect to other people beyond those sessions and connect to them to work on your collaboration idea. These events are not necessary to be eligible or to be able to apply. So in that sense, they're not mandatory, but they are highly recommended to participate and hopefully find some new faces and ideas to work with. The sessions will be happening in English. If possible, there will be some language support on spot, but we're not going to provide simultaneous translation, unfortunately. Second round of the Market Square events will announce once we have opened the second round. And then I have my last slide to share with you today, which is around the selection criteria. So for this, there will be an independent committee that assesses all the applications. We're asking them to look at 3 categories of selection criteria. One will be the quality. So this is very much looking at the match between the partners, the match of the objectives that you have with your proposal towards the objectives of the program, looking at the potential outcomes and the feasibility of this mobility taking place, how you plan it, and so forth. Then diversity is another important selection category criteria for us. That's very much related that, of course, this mobility program is looking at crossing physical national borders, but we're also interested in making an effort to cross other kinds of borders, be it between sectors, be it between people with different backgrounds. And in that sense, we're very much looking forward to receive applications that form unusual combinations of people working together on their idea. And last but not least, there's the question of innovation. And this is stressing the question on urgency, like why you, why now? But also, as Dea mentioned earlier, we're interested in green mobility and what is a more, let's say, eco-friendly, sustainable way of shaping our mobilities these days. That's it from my side. I hand over to Janneke, who has some more details, namely numbers, euros, and so forth.
Ah, do I? Good. Let me take you through the numbers and the details, as Jotam said so. As he mentioned, there's like you can opt for physical mobility only or a combination of physical mobility and virtual participation. So if you look at the numbers, there's like a possibility for the host to receive some provision costs, and this is a maximum of 10% of the total costs. So if you look at, we start in that sense with the team member, so the artists and cultural professionals that the host will invite into their place. So we decided to go for a minimum of 7 days. So there's like a minimum of 7 days, maximum of 60 days that you're allowed to do your mobility. And for a minimum of 7 days, including travel costs and everything, you will receive 1,500 euros. And we calculated for every extra day you will do a mobility on top of that 7 days, you will receive another 30 euros per day. That means as provision costs for the host, you will receive for like the starting budget, you will receive 150 euros, and for every extra day of mobility, there will be another 3 euros for provision costs for the host as well. On the virtual participation side, which again can only be matched together with physical mobility. But if there's somebody from a country that is like, especially now with COVID, still in a red zone and they're not allowed to travel, we really want them still to be able to participate and to join this project that you're planning to do. And we have some virtual participation budget for that as well. Again, as a virtual host, you can, this is an old schedule also, I'm sorry, I must say, because the numbers are not right in this one. A virtual host will receive a budget up again like 10%. So depending on the type of participation, it's either create, connect, learn, or explore. The virtual host will receive 100 euros or 150 euros maximum. So I'm sorry that this in the schedule it doesn't say it right, but we've decided to distribute like a different budget for virtual participation when it comes to create, assuming that you really work on a production. You will have some hardware costs, software costs, production costs as well. So we made sure that this budget is a bit higher than the one when it goes about connection, which is more about, you can think about, I mean, the things that are below there, like software, facilitation fees, training, facilitation fees, these are examples. So it might be other things as well, but this is what you can think of in order for your virtual participation. So for the connect part, the learn part, and the explore focus of your project, you will receive a maximum of 1,000 euros. We haven't set a minimum or a maximum date to this because we think this is the virtual participation doesn't have to do with date. It has to do with the project as it is. So we decided to just forgo for one type of budget and not distributing it according to a minimum of 7 days or a maximum. So this is how like the difference between physical mobility and virtual participation. Maybe important to mention, indeed, again, just to emphasize, there's like a minimum of 7 days for this mobility and a maximum of 60, as also mentioned below. And I'm not sure if there's another slide still. Yes, this is maybe a good one. Also, if you look on the website, there's this option, like we mentioned, the blended mobility. And just because it sounds quite complicated, so we thought, let's just give you an example and to make the difference, like how does this blended mobility look like and how would it look like also for you as a host. So for example, you do a blended mobility with a team connecting or focusing on the connect. And you have one host, 2 traveling team members with number A and B, and 1 non-traveling team member. So that's the one receiving the virtual participation fee. Let's say team member A visits for 9 days, including travel, and they will receive physical mobility. So they will get the 1,500 euros, topped with another 2 days is 30 euros, is in total 1,560 euros. Team member B visits for 11 days, so they also get the 1,500 euros, they get 4 times 30 euros, and then in together that will be 1,620. But you also have like the one not traveling. So they join as like a physical, virtual participation. That one will receive, like we mentioned, for Connect, they will receive a budget of 1,000 euros. So this is for your team members. So as a host, these are the ones that you will host, that you will receive and work together with. As a host, you will receive a 10% of all of this. So we calculated this as well. This is 150 euros with 2 times 3 euros, with 115 euros with 2 times 4 euros, and another 100 euros for the virtual collaboration, which in total would mean 418 euros. What we will do is we will grant the whole sum to the host, and it is up to the host to sub-grant it to their team members. But this is like an example of the calculation that we will make according to your applications for each and every one of you in order to grant the right sums and also be able to visualize it for you how you would be able to sub-grant it to your team members. Next one is there's how to apply. So I think Jotam already mentioned this as well, but if you start applying and open the application form, the host has to act as a main applicant. But just make sure that we also needed a lot of information from your team members as well. So what you have to do as a host, you create an account in my i-portunus.eu and you apply in English. And on the website itself, you can also download the whole application form in a Word document, as well as everything that you need from your team members. So what's easiest to do is download also that team member Word document, spread it out and send it to your team members, collect it before you start filling out the whole application form, because otherwise you might end up halfway not having all the information that you need from your team members as well. Like I mentioned, you have to apply in English, and you have to do so before 30th of June, and for the second round, the 8th of October. Just a bit of information on how to apply for things. So what will be asked once you start applying? It's general information of the host, and it depends if you're like applying as an individual host, or if you apply as an organization. Of course, there will be different questions to be answered. There's also some questions about your professional experience and hosting experience. It's not directly necessary that you have hosting experience, but it's good for us to know also if this is your first experience as a host, if you've already done it like years and years and years. It's just for a selection committee also good to know. There's then, of course, the details about the participating team members. Like I mentioned, make sure to download this Word document in order for them to be able to already send you all the information there. But this is really, we need to know also, like, who are your team members? Who do you want to work with? What's their experience? What's their background? Which sectors do you work? And of course, after this, we need to know everything about your collaboration proposal or proposals. Depending on how many projects you propose with. So we want to know like the need of the mobility, description, of course, of the project. We want to know a bit about the preparation and about the impact that it will have on the community or on the things that you're doing according to the project description. Of course, we also need the details on the planned mobility, physical or the mix of physical and virtual. This is very important as well. And you have to explain also when it comes to virtual, there's one question that you have to explain, why is this one virtual? And make sure that you're clear about the reason for this virtual collaboration or participation. And one of the last questions is just a few things on the feedback of the application process, because also this, at the beginning, it's already mentioned, it's a pilot scheme. And we want to make sure also for future that we have recommendations for the future to make sure that this is, it will go as smooth as possible. So please also include your feedback on the application process, so we will be able to include it also in our future recommendations. One last thing is that it's good to also check the charitable status. We have a check for this as well, but as an organization, in order to apply as a host, you have to make sure that you have this charitable status. And for both individual hosts and hosting organizations, we need a declaration of honor also from you, all to be downloaded either in the application form or just on the website. If you go to, I think, required, one of the, I should know this by heart now, but it's all there on the website to be checked out. Yes, I already thought we were coming to this end. So as promised at the start, we will have like another 20 minutes also for all of you to drop your questions. We hope that we already explained quite a lot so far, but just to be sure, we have a Q&A opened here, and maybe we can stop sharing the screen and also bring Jotam back. So we will, the two of us together will try to answer some of your questions also live. I'm just checking, Jotam, did you already select one?
Yes, I thought maybe to start with the question that was posted in the chat rather than in the Q&A, just so we don't forget about it. So this is a question from Walter, and a long name after that, but I'll just stick with Walter. So his first question is there a deliverable, like a video, text, or similar, that must be provided at the end of the project? The answer is, as a documentation, we'll need something in that direction, but there's not like an actual production necessary. The second question that he has, should travel and staying costs be justified afterwards? The answer is no, we will calculate with lump sums. Hence, we also need to have your charitable status checked so that we know that we're sending the money to a non-profit organization or an individual that has signed the Declaration of Honor. And then the third question is quite long. So Walter, actually on that one, the question is basically a short description of his project, and is there a feedback possibility on the project prior to application? Yes, there is. You can either send it to us by email. Again, email address is on the website. You can find it there. Or you can join one of the Market Square events to see if there's maybe still something that you want to fine tune on your project idea, add partners and so forth. So if you have project ideas, either send us an email beforehand if you have questions, or join the Market Square events. Janneke, did you find the question?
I find two, yes. I have one from Carmen and one from Valentin. The one from Carmen posted like, what costs are eligible for physical mobility team members, budget, travel, accommodation, and production? The budget that you receive is a lump sum. So the only thing, if we talk about physical mobility, the only thing that we have to receive back is your travel passes, boarding passes, train tickets, something like that, but the rest is the lump sum. But maybe it's good to emphasize again, it's a mobility scheme, it's a mobility grant. So if you talk about production, you might have to find extra funding, extra budget elsewhere in order to be able to fund your whole production of the project that you're doing. So for this, we will be focusing on mobility mainly. Also because we understand with 1,500 euros, probably you cannot do a whole production. So that can take into account. And also the question from Valentin, does the project have to be hosted in the same country where the host organization is registered? Yes. I think this is a good question as well. We already received it in our emails over the last couple of days. Yes, we assume if you apply as the main applicant, as the host, that you will be receiving the artists and culture professionals in your country as a host organization. So yes, indeed. Yotam, did you select any other ones already?
Yeah, just going on with the next ones in our Q&A list. So the question is, what's provision costs when we're talking about physical mobility? Provision cost is everything related to, let's say, food, drinks, anything that you need to nurture yourself, other than the accommodation costs, which is like the roof over your head and so forth. I hope that is simple and clear enough. Then Yura has a question that says, why is the host receiving only 10%? That's partly because we also have to follow some of the guidelines that were set from the program side, as in the commission. Partly because we understand that most costs will actually be related to the artist or cultural professional traveling to the host location. So that's like the travel itself, the accommodation, and the provision, as in food and so forth. That's why the host, in that sense, only gets 10%. Janneke, back to you.
Yes, I did. I already collected another one. So Valentino is wondering why the second and the first goal are more or less similar, and they are similar only when it comes to the end of the travel. So the last moment of traveling is the end of May 2022. And why the rest is all similar, so why we have like the same ending days of travel, of your mobility, is because we want to offer you as much time as possible. So now we start with the first mobility round, let's say. We want to open it up as soon as we have the selected applicants, and then open it up as long as possible. So until May 2022. For the second round, it's only a couple of months later. So that will be the 1st of December, but also the end of May. So they're more or less similar, but in that sense, it's really because we want to open it up as long as possible for all of you to be able to travel, and also because we are aware that it's possibly easier to travel if we look at COVID more when we go towards 2022 even, and at the end of this year. And the other question is from Anonymous, but it's a good question as well. Can the same team members receive funding for physical mobility and virtual participations for different part of the collaborations? Unfortunately, it's not possible. You can either only apply as a team member for virtual participation or for physical mobility. So it's either one or the other. Jotam.
Trying to keep scrolling down the list of questions, figuring out which ones to answer live. So I'll go with Bruno's question. Can the municipality apply? In principle, yes. If you identify maybe as a culture department, as a cultural organization, there's, as far as I know, nothing against that. Normal application criteria apply. And then the other question is, can we apply for projects that have already support from EU programs? The answer there would be in principle, no. No double funding is possible there, unless you see it as an extension. But maybe that's then also, if you bring this in, would be a good idea to have your specific case checked by one of our team members. Going to the next question, Jean-Marc is asking, how shall we report expenses? So as mentioned before, the expenses or the budget that you apply for will be calculated as a lump sum, and the reporting in that sense comes through proof of travel, proof of your actual mobility taking place through some kind of documentation, but we're not that interested in receiving your individual receipts. I hope that answers that question. Janneke.
Please, no, we don't want that. Good one. Cezanne asks if, oh, my screen is moving. Let me get back to Cezanne's question. In case of organizing capacity building for professionals virtually that corresponds to learn, are only instructors eligible for funding? No, like I mentioned, like there are examples, the things below. So it might indeed mention instructor fees, but if there's like something else that you need in order to be able to learn as part of your project, it's also, of course, fine to have like other expenses related to your virtual participation budget for this. And Eleonora asks, could there be a collaborative scheme between two host organizations? This is not a scheme about two host organizations. So no, in our case, one of them can only be a host, and they are also the one receiving the artist and cultural organizations. So if you really have a project in mind with two host organizations traveling back and forth, this might not be the one, also because you apply with a minimum of two other artists / cultural professionals. So no. Jotam, you have others.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's a very nice question. I think that maybe we should organize a program around mobility host exchange. I think for the future that would be very interesting. So thanks for bringing that question. I would like to reply to Mark, who has a question about limited companies being able to apply. So if you're a limited company in its statutes or whatever kind of registration document you have, your activities are described or your goals described as non-profit, then the answer is yes. If you have a for-profit objective with this limited company, then unfortunately no. However, you can always still apply as an individual host, explaining a little bit the structure or the place where you're doing this from. And then because this Q&A keeps moving, I can't see my second question anymore. that I wanted to. Ah, yeah, there we go. Boje is asking, is it possible for a museum to invite visiting scientists from the scientific institution to come to the museum? So the program is meant for artists and culture professionals. If these scientists can make a strong case why they should be perceived as cultural professionals or otherwise creative people, then that's something that the selection committee could look at. We are very interested in crossing these sectoral borders. However, in terms of the activity and particularly the target group, like this program is meant for artists and culture professionals, we should make that very clear. So again, if you have like a specific project idea, you need help with understanding if this would fit, please drop us a line, email, and we'll get back to you on that.
Good, and then Ivana is asking if it's eligible to apply for one physical and one digital mobility, as it has to be two physical mobilities, or has to be two physical mobilities minimum. No, you can apply within one project for one physical and one digital mobility, and indeed there's a minimum of two artists and cultural professionals being involved. So if that's in one project, one physical and one digital, that's totally fine. And I think you had another question as well. And this relates to if it can be two mobilities to the same artist. Unfortunately, that is not possible. So you need to find other artists as well, maybe join the Market Square events to find more artists to collaborate with. Jotam, do you already have another one?
Yeah, I was just gonna reading the chat again rather than the Q&A, because also some questions appear in there. Hannah is asking, can the period be split into two or more periods and also in two different countries? We're planning one part of the research in Italy and one part in Germany. So the answer there is in principle no, because you received the lump sum just for like this one particular effort. However, if you see how you can make this work within the budget, then that's completely up to you, of course. But in principle, we're not splitting periods and countries, unfortunately, again. Then there's a question from Ruzan, who just joined. Video artists can participate, for sure. That was the question, can video artists participate? And if I'm not an organization and don't represent an organization, can I participate individually or host some artists from another country? The answer there is yes, yes, and yes. So we're looking forward to your application, Ruzan. And back to you, Janneke.
Good. I have some more. One from Elvira, who's wondering if it's possible that two hosts in different countries can apply with the same project. Probably at different phases of the project, they're both hosting a part of that project in a different country. Yes, you can. I mean, if you have like the different hosts, so if you have one host in one country applying for one part of the project and another host for another, that's fine, but we cannot connect it in that sense that we cannot make sure we cannot that you get your be awarded for both. So it could be in the end that you only get awarded for one of the parts and not both of them. But in reality, you can apply for both. And then another anonymous one: could you elaborate on a minimum of two artists, cultural professionals? If it's just one person and then another, do they have to be within the same project, or there can it still be two collaborations? It can still be two different collaborations if you apply with two people. It's just we really just set the minimum. So yes, you can. Jotam, do you find more?
Yeah. The answers keep coming. Oh, the answers keep coming in, but also the questions keep coming in.
That's good.
So I think Maya is asking about eligibility of education organizations if they have arts and culture in their curricula. So there the answer is yes, but again, you need to kind of clarify how you see yourself as a culture organization and how this fits within the cultural mobility program. And now my My screen.
Meanwhile, I can maybe
again.
answer
Go
Jean-Marc's
for it.
question. Because he's wondering, we're already currently beneficiaries of the Creative Europe project. Can we still apply for i-portunus? Yes, you can. So that's also a quick answer. And maybe also the question from Julia, what can the €1,000 be spent on for a team member participating virtually? It really depends, of course, on the focus that you have, but it can be on several different things. I think we need one receipt for something that you spend the budget on. So depending on the connection, or it's either a fee for a facilitation fee, for example, in Learn, but it can also be software. And we don't need, like Jotam already mentioned, we don't want all your receipts because it's a lump sum. But for the commission, we have to provide one of your receipts on the software, on some hardware, on production costs, on maybe you have a subscription for Miro board for a whole year that has to be part of your project, things like that.
So meantime, there's also a question that came in through Facebook as we're streaming this also live on the ECF Facebook page. What would be considered as a host country if the artistic exchange is performed in multiple EU countries, like both residencies? So the question or the answer there would be, in a sense, quite simple. The host country is the country where the host is registered. So that place where either the individual or the organization has its official registration. And trying to get back to the Q&As. Janneke, did you find one? I'm sorry.
There's like
It's
more
taking me
popping
too
up as
long
well.
to read.
Maya's question, let me see, because sometimes they keep changing the one. If they're voted up, then I think they're up, so we can also a good practice example. That's a good one. Jota, would you have a good practice example?
I would love that.
Yes, I thought so.
Good practice example. My dream project, if I were to participate, would be to do something around trains, mobility in the border area between Germany, the Czech Republic, and Poland, and to find artists and hosts located in this area where we're looking very much into maybe land art between the borders, connections over the borders, and making some maybe train exhibition in between those different places. I don't know if that's precise enough, but if you want to join me on this, oh no, I can't apply. No, sorry, as a partner organization,
you cannot apply. No.
It's 2 o'clock also. I'm not sure if we should start rounding this up.
We should start rounding it up. So maybe for those of you who still have like those questions burning inside you, post them now, and we will do a last round of answering them. And then we have to round this up, and thank you for your attendance. Some are answered already, some are moved, still 2 there. Would a musical festival organizer be eligible candidate for this call, providing that this project submitted is involved professional musicians as lecturers? Yes, it could be, as long as they all come from different countries, if you host it, but music definitely is one of the sectors that we would provide grants to. Jotam, do you want to do the last one maybe?
Then I can do the last one in the Q&A. I see there's one more popping up in the chat. Janneke,
okay.
If you want to do this as your last one. So last question in the Q&A is, in the case that the host nonprofit organization is an international group of artists, is it possible to apply for mobility funds to bring all members of that organization in one country? Theoretically, I would say yes, but you really need to look into making sure that you fit with the criteria. So we're looking very much into kind of new connections, people from different backgrounds and so forth. So you're open to apply, I don't know how likely it is to be able to get the funding. But again, if you have like a further particular question to that, feel free to drop us an email and we can get back to you. And maybe immediately answering to Valentin, the video or and the presentation of this whole info session will be shared with you. Well, not directly after we finish this, but within the next few days.
Yes, and then there's still a question from Hannah also about the chance to travel already on the 20th of August. And I think we could possibly look into this, but it really has to do also with contracts and stuff. So we will only be able to announce the selected applicants on the 2nd of August, because we really need time also to carefully read all your applications. And if there's one or two, I think, selected, we could look into it. So I would not say don't apply because of this reason, but we have to see individually if this would be possible, Hannah. And then there's Maya still with the last question. Is it possible to apply for a promotion of a project that is already finished? I would say, oh, you would like to answer, Jotam? Or you just, I would say just try.
I just pushed the button.
You pushed the button. Yes, just make sure that why is it needed now? What is it needed for? And but yes, you can.
I think we should maybe wrap it up, Janneke.
I think so too.
I'm sure questions will keep coming in.
That's also a good thing. I'm really happy that at least you have a lot of questions. One of my nightmares this night was that we would launch this thing and present this today to you and none of the questions would come in. That wouldn't have been a good thing. So really, thanks a lot, all of you, for all the questions. Really keep them coming also through the email address that we have on the website, i-portunus@mitost.org. If you have questions like that. We will also prepare a list of FAQs, which we will upload as soon as possible after this session as well, online on the website for you to look into. And we will include all of the questions that you posted today. And I think we now managed to at least answer most of them. So I just want to thank all attendees for posting your questions, for listening to us, for hearing us out. And I really wish you a lot of luck with your applications. And I want to say thanks to my colleagues for being with us and introducing this whole project together. Good luck with the applications and hope to see you in the application form.
Bye.